press conference. I just want to play it here. Let's see if the volume is too low.
This is our last place of the year. We want to highlight what we think is the.
So you hear the quality of the volume is low, not me, but it will improve as time goes on. So the voice is currently low, just bear with me, it will improve.
There was not even a challenge in the progress of the deliberations. It was a unanimous decision. So this is the ultimate acumen of leadership being demonstrated by President E.D. Mnangagwa, being First Secretary of ZANU-PF. You will also have followed our final meetings of the party last week. We started off with the Politburo. We then went into the Central Committee, and we ended up with the Consultative Assembly of the party. And in all those meetings, which we invited you, the press, you could see that the authority of the president is there. Everybody is dancing according to the chords of the leadership of the party in this orchestra of harmony, in this symphony of harmony, which is ZANU-PF. So, for those who may have entertained ideas about where ZANU-PF would go, we are living to the building of a 60-year-old revolutionary party, which has got a compact with the people of Zimbabwe about shaping their destiny so that they can assume their rightful place in global affairs. And President Mnangagwa is fitting the bill in every aspect. Yes, there were some noises which may have come from certain quarters, some effort at trumpeting certain tendencies as being at variance with what President Mnangagwa was doing. We want to assure you that his marriage with the membership of the party is intact. It's very strong. He's enjoying a very, very happy marriage with the membership of the party. And if we go by the performance of the by-elections which have been all going on in the country, which ZANU-PF now wins even at local government level, which historically used to be the hunting ground of a defunct opposition. ZANU-PF is winning by-elections at each and every turn. This is a demonstration that similarly his marriage with the electorate of Zimbabwe is intact and is very happy as a party. Remember, we always pride ourselves as being the party, a revolutionary, which started off as a revolutionary movement, and in 1979 at Lancaster House made the historic, unique decision in the history of revolutionary movements to say that we are going to assume power through the baptism of the ballot, even though we were winning on the battlefield by the power of the bullet. So we don't take our obligation, our compact with the electorate lightly. And we have lived to elections ever since. And we try as much as possible to convince the electorate to vote for us by our good deeds. We never take the electorate for granted. And President Mnangagwa has taken that attribute of ZANU-PF to the highest possible level in the history of the party. So even on the national stage, he is complete master of the electoral politics. ZANU-PF is winning. This is a very good thing which we want registered by you as the fourth estate, that we are living to our democratic credentials as a party. Yes, there may have been covetous, jealous, sometimes ambitious suitors who may have tried to have side shows elsewhere to try to compete with what was going on in the main stage, which is here at ZANU-PF headquarters. All those side shows have come to naught in whatever form. Some may have been from within, some may have been from without, but we are happy to say that even those who may have entertained those ideas, they all come back to the fold of the party. They don't, what people purport to attribute to them outside of goings on the deliberations of the party, they never have the courage to come and say that within the deliberations of the party. So we believe in what goes on within the party, not in what may be said elsewhere in other fora. And we told you here that the show was here. They tried to compete against the voice of the party as we enunciated here. It didn't get anywhere. Takaita competition yana Geza, yana competition yana Hopewell, yana competition yana Nyoka Mabunu, and many others who are vachikonyuka from elsewhere vachikupa they can offer a competing voice as to what is going on in the body politic of Zimbabwe. I'm very happy with you, because we are people of integrity. You have given due credence to what comes out of the Politburo, out of the Central Committee, out of the Consultative Assembly, and out of the mouth of our leader, more than these ramblings on or the memories which can be emanating from elsewhere. Some of them are on the social media, very prolific. There's somebody from Australia who is writing acres and acres about what is supposed to be going on here, and he espouses his own understanding of the Zimbabwe revolution, which is nothing in accordance with what actually happened during that Zimbabwe revolution. I say it once again, there's nobody with a continuous institutional memory of the Zimbabwe revolution as President E.D. Mnangagwa. He went in there as a youth league member when the party was formed, when it was still ZAPU. It split and he went with ZANU. It acquired a militance where there was the setting up of a guerrilla army. He was the first to be among those. Yes, the party went through the penury of prison. He was captured and he would spend again years in prison. He would even be on death row. The war or the army which he had pioneered became so big that it forced the colonial authorities to free the nationalists, and he would be the beneficiary of that freedom which came from the army which he had pioneered in 1974. He would be freed and he went to Zambia. He finished his university studies and showing exceptional dedication to the revolution and ultimate courage. He goes back to the same war second time. I always repeat, my experience of war is that one time is enough. But there he was in 76, 77, rejoining the war which has now become bigger in Mozambique and going on to serve in that war in Mozambique as the special advisor to the president of the First Republic when he was the leader of the party, and discharging himself in exceptional leadership prowess, including the founding of what is now our CIO, which is the most respected intelligence organization on the African continent. And the accolades are shown by the fact that the African Union, when it finally decided to have a Security Council of its own like the United Nations, it called upon Zimbabwe CIO to become the mentor and founder of an African Continental Intelligence Service. These are the accolades which have been given to Zimbabwe, and they owe it to the man whom I'm talking about, President Mnangagwa, when he came back to the war and founded our Security and Intelligence Organization. And his work would also show its mettle when he maneuvered through the treachery of the transition period. There was a lot of effort to destroy ZANU and ZIPRA during that transition period. And he was the chief advisor. He was many roles, including the chairman of the Joint Operations Command, together ZANU, ZIPRA, and the former Rhodesian Army. And out of it, he created the Zimbabwe Defense Forces of today. They have also the hallmark of our president. He did many other things, the policy of national reconciliation. The amalgamation of those armies would be a template which the United Nations would use, even in other places like Nicaragua and for conflict resolution. So we wrote new chapters in conflict resolution at the diplomatic stage. President Mnangagwa was involved. We would fight to defeat apartheid as he tried to destabilize us through our neighbor Mozambique. He was part of the security apparatus. But when it came to peace in Mozambique, he would spend months in Rome negotiating the peace accords, which finally brought Renamo and Frelimo together. It's the same president. ANC, SWAPO, we hosted here. We secured their leadership here when they were in exile. He was in charge of the national security. Yes, with one of Samis Yeps, Joe Gabi from the ANC and others were assassinated. But by and large, our record of protecting our guests from the CC and from the SWAPO and from PSC was very good. Again, President Mnangagwa was at the helm of the national security apparatus throughout that period, the formative aspect of that period. He served in many other roles in the government of the President of the Republic, including the achievement of the Unity Accord, which is the cornerstone of our stability as a country. And we are a few days away from the celebration of the Unity Accord. He was there. I mean, there were many others I'm saying, but I said there's somebody who has got the institutional memory of where we have come as a country, and he has been lucky to survive. Because survival is a matter of water. There's nothing meritorious about one particular individual surviving the war. That's why we tend to discourage any attempt at self-glorification by others who think that a revolutionary war is the same as a national army fighting for the defense of a country. No. So he survived by dint of luck, but also by many other things which would have made it possible. So he has got this institutional memory about the struggle of Zimbabwe, and he has used it skillfully even now to drive regional diplomacy so that the region is very much united under SADC. And the creativity of Zimbabwean diplomacy never ceases. He initiated the SADC East Africa collaboration on the issue of the DRC. Yeah, we are very happy that imitation is the best form of flattery. The American government has since taken over that initiative, and last week there was the signing ceremony of the peace accord between DRC and Rwanda. But the genesis of the idea came from Zimbabwe, and they reached out to President Yunuto, and the Americans saw the virtue of that, and we are very good. We are very happy the Trump administration that it has taken a new leaf about how African issues should be resolved rather than abating conflict. It is trying to find a way of resolving conflict. Africa can only benefit, but we are happy that the initial seed of that kind of conflict resolution diplomacy once again owes to Zimbabwe. And the man who has been at the helm of these policies over the years, either as an advisor in the First Republic or as a proponent in the Second Republic, is none other than Emerson Mnangagwa, my president, the President of the Republic, the First General ZANU-PF, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. This is a remarkable life by any measure, and I'm going to flight a few pictures, and I'm very thankful for the Chinese ambassador who has managed to put together some of these pictures, which shows the visionary aspect of the leadership of ZANU-PF. That one, it has given a consequential geopolitical footprint to the affairs of the sub-region. That's a picture, 1974. On our left is Deng Xiaoping, the man who would, a year, 2 years later, assume the leadership of modern China, become the paramount leader of China, and usher in the modern period of the modernization of China, which has propelled it from being a backward third world economy to the second largest economy in the world today. That's Deng Xiaoping. And who is he hosting? That's our chairman, Chitepo. 1964, we can throw the others. That's another one. from a military point of view. Do you see the tall black man in the middle there? That's General Mnangagwa. That was before he was made a general by the British for winning against Peter Wars. He was made a general not during the war. We had no generals, I repeat, during the war. That was when he was still commander, and that is in 1970, I think 74 again, when he was visiting China. Yes, and Chairman Chitepo is also in that picture. Remember, these are the two people who adopt the concept of a people's war and forge a relationship with Frelimo and Mnangagwa and Samora Machel to deploy Zambia guerrillas through Mozambique and avoid the treachery of the Zambezi River when you are crossing to infiltrate, which Zanla and Zipra had suffered for too long. And out of that relationship with Frelimo, they implanted a guerrilla army which became forces in the northeast of Rhodesia, which later spread the gospel of the world when it is coupled with the freedom of Mozambique in 1974. It motivates thousands upon thousands of young Zimbabweans to say, Mozambique. You can see those young people. When you go to the tomb of the unknown soldier, think of those young people. Those were the ones who were training with the Chinese. You can see there later on Mnangagwa with the president of the First Republic. Again, probably this one is in China, but I don't think it is in Tanzania. So this is the faithful relationship, the consequential relationship which ZANU-PF as a party. There's the other side of the Zipra side, which we are also compiling so that you understand the two pillars of our current Zimbabwe Defense Forces. But what we are trying to highlight is the tremendous amount of institutional memory which resides in the mind of our president as he runs the affairs of the Zimbabwean state. This should be very humbling to those who may have ideas of challenging his authority in the party or even at the national stage. This is a man who has been steeled in many aspects of our leadership. And there we have the master himself, President Nyerere of Tanzania. He is the one who takes Comrade Herbert Chitepo along. Comrade Herbert Chitepo had gone to Tanzania as a lawyer to help President Nyerere deal with a rebellion, a coup d'etat, post-colonial coup d'etat by the erstwhile colonial army. So he needed a lawyer to try the rebels, the coup plotters. And you remember the Zimbabwean young man who had met at a conference in London, at a Pan-Africanist conference in London, was very brilliant. And he had no lawyers because being a former German colony, Tanzania was backward unlike Kenya. It had no educated people. So he remember they had met a young man from Zimbabwe called Herbert Chitepo at a Pan-Africanist conference in London. So when he wanted to try the rebels, the coup plotters, he called upon Comrade Chitepo to become his director of public prosecutions in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. And ZANU-PF at that time was still ZAPU. It then split and ZANU took the pro-Chinese line. And Nyerere had used his experience with China to reorganize his army. That's why these Tanzanian Defense Forces could deal even with the recent problems in the elections in Tanzania, because he reoriented the army completely away from coups. All other African armies which were not reoriented, they continued. They gave Africa the bane of coup d'etat, Nkrumah, Obote, Patrice Lumumba, all these African leaders would fall foul of course, but Tanzania did not, because he reformed the state, and the person who helped to do that was none other than Herbert Chitepo. And out of that association between Nyerere and Chitepo came the Chinese aspect. The Chinese aspect came about because there was a split between Russia and China, the Sino-Soviet split, about which line to follow in socialist development. Our side, one side took the pro-Chinese line, it became Zana forces. The other side remained with the Soviet line, and it became the Cipra forces. So we got the best of the two revolutionary trends of the geopolitics of the time. And the man, again, who is with the enduring institutional memory about all this, is our president. I felt I had to go through this so that you have an appreciation of where ZANU-PF has come from and how it continues to discharge the role of giving prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe as they chart their affairs on the global stage. And the success is palpable. The relationship with China is not given as a steel plant. It has given us an advanced lithium industry. That's China and the United Nations vetoing the 2008 resolution which encodes Zimbabwe's fate to be that of Iraq. This was at the height of American unipolarism. The British and Americans had just invaded and conquered Iraq, and they thought they would do the same, and they wanted to use the United Nations, and China vetoed that. It has never vetoed resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. It exercised it on behalf of Zimbabwe. So this is, I'm emphasizing this relationship because it's a relationship which has given us our military backbone. It has now given us the capacity to withstand sanctions from the West over 2 decades, to the point where the American Congress is now talking of repealing sanctions because they failed. Other African countries would have buckled under sanctions, but Zimbabwe did not. So the relationship with China is very consequential, and the highlight of this year's achievements at the diplomatic front was the invitation of our president to the 80th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic, the People's Liberation Army, of which he was an original student. When they were trained, he trained under the army of China. We trained under instructors from Tanzania. He did it with the original. And yes, that relationship is now a 5-star relationship. It matters when a part which is fledgling in 1960s can forge a relationship 6 decades later, which is so important when that country with which you forged a relationship becomes the 2nd largest economy in the world and very soon becomes the #1 economy of the world. There are a lot of things which are happening at the geopolitical level. You know that the dollar is now, the petrodollar is virtually dead. The petrodollar has been the currency upon which America has been ruling the world. If you wanted to buy petrol, you had to use US dollars, you had to buy US dollars. That has changed now. Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest supplier of petrol, of oil, now uses yuan in dealing with China. India and Russia use the rupee. We are getting into a multi-currency world where absolute mastery of the world by America is giving into a multipolar world. And Zimbabwe's friend, who was a 3rd world periphery state in the 1960s, is now emerged as the dominant trading economy of the world. Every country in the world, their biggest trading partner, #1, is China. So out of this trading partner comes economic power. Out of economic power comes financial prowess. And we are the only country which trades in the most difficult currency in the world, US dollar. And all the US dollars belong to us. They are ours. They are not a gift from America. And that has been achieved by President Mnangagwa in the last 5 to 6 years of the Second Republic. To de-dollarize the economy. To de-dollarize, because my dollars are now happy when America and ekutozvisenzera mpune pauzima titori full member ipapo panyaya yekuti ma-US dollar hatiite rely on the Federal Reserve Bank of America. This is the strength which the president has given to this economy, President E.D. Mnangagwa. So when he enjoys that marriage, happy marriage with the electorate, that happy marriage with the membership of the party, it's end. It's not flippant. It's actually end. He has worked hard.
So take note that this is ZANU-PF propaganda
of the electorate and of the membership of ZANU-PF. We are also carrying big economic initiatives at a regional level. Just last week, our policy meeting followed the lead of our ANC friends in South Africa to fully discuss the steel sector. And we are now looking at dovetailing the steel sectors of Zimbabwe and South Africa. We are pursuing that at the highest policy level of the two movements. So our Secretary General is reaching out to his counterpart in South Africa. And this is the blessing of the two leaders of Zimbabwe and South Africa. We owe our alliance to the Liberation War days, because our strategic assessment is that, of course, there's Samora Machel, there's I can't talk of President Nyerere without talking of President Samora Machel. I already mentioned to you that he invited Chitepo and Tomogara to come and deploy ZANLA forces through Frelimo's forces in an advancing guerrilla warfare against the Portuguese. For clarity, what had happened was that for many years, the Rhodesians had used the Zambezi River as the marginal line. You try to cross the Zambezi River, the Rhodesians are on the other side of dugout canoes from Zambia, shooting at ZANLA and Zipra from 1966 when we started the war. So it was very not easy to deploy across the Zambezi River. It's a big river. It's Africa's 4th largest river. So Frelimo advanced from Tanzania and crossed the Zambezi River into Tete province. When it crossed into Tete province, Rhodesia was alarmed, because it meant that there was a possibility of ZANLA forces or Zimbabwe Zipra forces coming through Mozambique, crossing under the protection of Frelimo, the Zambezi River, then coming into Rhodesia on open terrain, Mavradona, Pasisina Ruko. So the Rhodesian army was alarmed. What did they do? They decided to deploy their forces into Mozambique, because they were saying the Portuguese army was very weak, because it was coming from Portugal. It was not fighting for its territory, unlike the Rhodesians who said we were fighting for our territory. So when they deployed their army into Mozambique to fight against Frelimo, Samora Machel and Mondlane then reached out to Zipra and ZANLA, to Chitepo and JZ to say, can you guys bring your forces so that we can pin your Rhodesians at home so that they don't cross into Mozambique? That time Zipra was not quite ready, ZANLA was ready, and Chitepo and Chomogara ended up as allies of Samora Machel and Mondlane, and our army could now cross the Zambezi under the protection of Frelimo, and the Northeast Offensive, the legendary Northeast Offensive, came out of that alliance. That's an aspect which I just felt I had to highlight, but I want to come back to say that we are doing well as an economy because of President Mnangagwa. And this relationship, he has got institutional memory of where it came from over the years. And these pictures are events which happened with him before his eyes. So that's where he is today. We are very lucky to have a leader who has survived, and that's why he's respected by his peers in the region, all of them. They respect him. The same respect which we accord him as an electorate, as a party, is the one which he enjoys among his friends. So out of that relationship, we are now forging an even closer union in SADC. And we are looking at 3 countries, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and South Africa, forming what is a steel union, a coal and union. Because no industry, no product forges the development of a country better than steel. Steel is food, is what food is to the human diet, steel is to the building of a nation. And President Mnangagwa has shown exceptional capabilities, acumen, by establishing a thoroughly modern steel industry, which has attracted the admiration of his peers in the region. And because of the leadership of Zimbabwe in the raw steel production, South Africa is now reaching out. They have the most advanced downstream fabrication steel on the continent. All those cars in South Africa, they are manufactured out of steel. So we are forging that relationship, but we are taking it further by bringing in Mozambique, because steel production and fabrication requires energy, and no country in the sub-region is as endowed as Mozambique with energy. The river Zambezi is very powerful in Mozambique, and there are 4 falls, cataracts in Mozambique: Cabora Bassa, Panankua, Barajem, and I think another one, where we want to harness the same river many times, the same water, to generate hydroelectricity. But also Mozambique has got the 3rd largest resource of gas in the world after Russia and Qatar. And the Americans are investing nearly $5 billion into Mozambique for their gas infrastructure. So we should be able to piggyback on that investment, which is destined for China, for India, for Turkey, for Europe. We will now have a chance to piggyback on the infrastructure and carbon and build power stations and then generate electricity for the industrialization of our region. And we are very lucky because between Zimbabwe and South Africa, all the minerals which produce steel, we are dominant on the global stage. 85% of the ferrochrome, which is the main alloy for carbon steel for construction, is shared between Zimbabwe and South Africa. The Bushveld complex geological formation in South Africa and the Great Dyke geological formation in Zimbabwe. The 2 of them, they contain 85% of the ferrochrome, which is needed for making steel, carbon steel for construction. The one which does bridges, cars, railway lines, pylons of electricity. So that requires electricity. And Mozambique brings in an energy bank into the relationship. The vision of our president, the vision of President Ramaphosa, the vision of President Chapo, is that when we join forces, there should be no region which produces steel cheaper than Southern Africa. We should determine the price of steel on the global market. I am saying this out in tandem with what I was telling you about vision, about ZANU in the past. I'm now giving you about the vision of ZANU, PF, and the liberation movement about where we are going. What am I saying? I am highlighting that the sacrifices of the generations, the Samora Machel and the Soweto 76 generation, are not in vain, because possibilities which we are now realizing as a united force in the region are such that they will fulfill the dreams of sacrifice, because sacrifice was only for the prospect of prosperity. And that's our shared vision. And our president is snug in the center of that vision about where we want to go as a sub-region, about where Southern Africa want to be in global affairs. And we're also very lucky that as we move to electrical vehicle mobility, our two neighbors, Zambia and Congo, they contain most of the cobalt and the copper, which is accounting for the electric battery industry of the world. So if we have a steel industry in South Africa and an electric storage energy battery industry between Zambia and DRC, we are assured that Africa will become very powerful. And that what happened in the 19th century when Europe came and decolonized us and made us slaves and colonies will never be repeated, because Africa will be so strong. This is the vision which President Mnangagwa carries from the time when he was a young man to up to where he is today in his 80s. Very strong, very energetic, very alert as he discharges the affairs of Zimbabwe. We've had a good success with the stability of the currency. Now it is strengthening. This is no small feat. We have had good success with the steel industry. We have had good success with our agricultural industry. We are now looking at exporting wheat. Remember, 4 years ago, we would have been scrounging around looking for grain from Ukraine, from Russia, to support us through. Now, no matter how much bread we eat, it's homegrown wheat we are using, to the point where our granaries are full. We are now thinking of exporting to our friends, to our neighbors. We are now copying the idea of how Zimbabwe is turning the African savannas into a food basket. Our president has done something which has never been done by the African savannas before. In colonial times, African savannas were used to produce fancy crops. That's tobacco, cocoa, sisal, those crops, cotton. Once the continent starved, we produce those crops for the world, for the industries of the West, whilst the continent starved. Zimbabwe has flipped the coin around. African savannas are now used to produce food so that the country doesn't starve. So we are now a template by the World Food Program, by the Food and Agricultural Organization. We are now a template that African savannas can equally produce food crops, so that the young and teeming African population, which is growing by the way, probably in the next 2050, Africa's population will be twice that of Europe. That was not the case 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Africa's population was half of that of Europe. So we are the continent with a young population. We are the continent of the future. We need to produce food. And we have the African savannas which have never been used, like the prairies or the pampas or the black soils of Ukraine. The Africa's savannas were never used for food production. Zimbabwe has shown that it can be done. And who is the leader who has shown that? President Mnangagwa. This is good. This is no small things. You take them lightly. But for a continent which you used to go around for begging for food, this is very important. It adds to vitality of the African continent. So our granaries are full because of the policy of the President of the Republic. We have achieved scaling figures in tourism. the security and safety which is associated with Zimbabwe, together with our scenic Victoria Falls and other, made us become a coveted destination of tourism, according to the authoritative Forbes magazine, the foremost business publication of the world. This is not a small thing. We need to hit our chest as a country. But we also have a very, very active diaspora, which has come back home in droves. The three diasporas, the white one from the 70s, the white one from the 80s when they ran away from majority rule. The first one ran away from the war, 1970s, the white diaspora. Then this black diaspora with the meltdown of the economy after 2008 and sanctions. All of them are voting back home. So this Christmas, you are going to be entertaining so many Zimbabweans coming back home. Before they would be coming, they would be sending money to buy meal in this month of hunger. Because normally the season is at its end, the cropping season. So hunger stops from November, December to January. And we will be looking upon the diaspora to help us pull through. That is over now. The diaspora is coming to celebrate. They are bringing in their US dollars. They are coming to build homes home. They are very proud about what's going on at home. You see every other week on television, diasporas come home to give themselves awards of their performance in the diaspora from different national jurisdictions across the world. Zimbabweans perform well enough, doesn't matter which jurisdiction you place them, because they are educated at home. We are very educated. And where does that come from? Again, from the institutional capacity we built over the years during the war. We built the capacity to deliver education on a scale Africa has never done in Zimbabwe. These are the achievements of ZANU-PF as a party. So I came here to extol the virtues of a party. I joined as a young man leaving university, a party where many young people paid the ultimate sacrifice, and we know them. A party which continues to confound about what it can do, but a party which also thrives upon the visionary leadership of a forward-looking young man of the 1960s, who continues to read the geographic and the financial and economic parameters of modern nation building in a way which has made this country begin to grow at a rate which even those who did not like to see it succeed now actually acknowledge. You know, when you begin to be praised by the IMF and the World Bank, it simply adds to the adage that nothing succeeds like success. And this is the story of ZANU-PF. This is the story of the people of Zimbabwe. But above all, this is the story of President Mnangagwa as the leader of Zimbabwe. I felt there was not much news because we have been succeeding to confound all your prophecies about Nyoka Mabunu, about Hopewell, about Geza, about what could come out of Chamiza, about this and that. All those things have come to naught. So since they are not newsworthy anymore, we just felt we would go through the paces of the successes which have made them become unnewsworthy. This is the story of ZANU-PF, the story of President Mnangagwa, and the story of the people of Zimbabwe. I thank you. I'm ready to answer any questions.
If there are any questions, could you please have your...
It is the end of the year. You have things which may be outstanding
So I'm
in your mind.
just checking how many minutes are left. Okay. All right, there it ended when it was questions time, because they knew, I think that is the most critical moment, and they definitely will be digesting this and more other issues after this. I thought of just giving you the audio live press conference before we get into the analysis. Thank you very much for your patience. It is just listening to a man waffling, lying, saying all stupid things, but we have to do so so that at the end of the day we tell the people the real truth. Thank you very much for watching us. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send a star. So